going back to what you were saying about the police and how they had been infiltrated effectively by wokeism, etc. It seems to me that the judiciary are very much in the same place. That some of the sentencing that you see these days, in terms of this doesn't make any sense at all. How do we cure that?
Well, I think the judiciary is one of those organisations that hasn't possibly had the spotlight put on it as it should have done. I've been in many courts, looked at many people sitting in stately presumption at the front of the court, and I've known some of their histories, and they're not good people. And I think we're in a situation where the idea of judges being these completely blameless, wonderful pillars of the community, I think that's gone. I actually think what happened after the riots, and let's be honest, no one's condoning riots, and those people needed to be dealt with. But there are plenty of people who just said some hurty words online, and yet they have got bigger sentences than Hugh Edwards, for example.
Well,
just give you an example.
Paedophilia is the obvious one. I mean, there was for a while there, anybody who was caught with images and so on was straight to jail. But latterly, the last few years, it's all getting off without.
I'm going to say something now, Ken, which people might find staggering, but I'm afraid paedophilia is rife in this country. It's not just a Muslim issue. I know currently that's in the news, but we have serious, high-level people in this country, judges, chief police officers, who are all complicit in paedophilia. Now, that sounds appalling. And paedophilia has always gone on in this country. Of course it has in every country. But we now have a situation where we have people who turn a blind eye who shouldn't be turning a blind eye to it. And as a result, we've allowed, obviously, Muslim rape gangs to have sway. But it's bigger than that. And we have the likes. I mean, people talk to me about, Jimmy Savile, if he'd lived, he'd be in prison now. Well, I'm not so sure he would have been in prison, because Jimmy Savile knew an awful lot of people and knew where the bodies were buried.
He knew Mrs. Thatcher very well, by the way.
He did. Enough of that, Ken. I'll have nothing said. But I don't think he would, because here is Hugh Edwards, a very high-profile BBC employee, one of the biggest, announced the Queen's death, for goodness sake. And he had images of 7-year-old children in undress, and I won't go into details, but he's walking the streets quite happily collecting his pension. Now, if that isn't a reason for somebody to go to prison, what is? And this is the problem. And it sends a message to other paedophile rings, because they do tend to be not in isolation. They do tend to be in rings. I mean, my first arrest in 1982 was a paedophile. He lived in a part of the Wirral, and he went to prison for 18 years. And I'm saying all he had. In those days, we didn't have the internet, but he had magazines which he'd bought from Holland, I believe, and he had them in his possession. He went to prison for 18 years, and yet Hugh Edwards, who was paying to see porn, he didn't. And I think it tells you all you need to know about British society, which is clearly broken by the establishment we have.
Yeah, I agree.